Star Wars has for a long time now left a sour taste in my mouth, whether that's due to the content itself or the state of the fandom. It doesn't change the fact that I'd begun feeling fatigued. Now I'm one of the people who has overall enjoyed a lot of what Disney has done with Star Wars, be it the sequel trilogy, The Mandalorian, Jedi Fallen Order, Solo, Rogue One. But recently I've been feeling more and more that Star Wars could be so much more than what it is right now. Star Wars has the potential for some of the greatest storytelling imaginable. There's a whole galaxy out there for us to explore, filled with narratives to be told. I guess what I'd been looking for was for Star Wars to grip me once again. And guys, I have to tell you, I love Andor. This show has lit a spark in me that I wasn't expecting. I can once again say that I am excited to be a Star Wars fan, and that truly is something special to me. Now I must admit that I was not looking forward to this show. When it was first announced years ago, I thought it was an idiotic decision. I thought that they would just be retreading Rogue One, and I didn't really see the interest in making a show about a character who was in a single movie that I didn't really care that much about. Don't get me wrong, I like Rogue One, and I think Diego Luna absolutely deserves the spotlight, but Rogue One is probably my least favorite of the Disney movies, except for Rise of Skywalker. And so essentially, I was cynical, I was pessimistic. I didn't see the potential this show had. For a while now, I've been quite adamant about wanting new stories and new timelines that explores new places in the galaxy. I was tired of the Skywalker saga because I thought we had already exhausted almost every nuance out of it, but I think I just had it wrong. I was naive to assume that an intimate Star Wars story about the rising of the rebellion wouldn't have a lot of potential to be great. And the thing is, it could have turned out to be really bad. I mean, Obi-Wan Kenobi was a show that I was very excited for, and I overall enjoyed it, but I don't think it did much for Star Wars. I don't think I would have enjoyed it much if it didn't have Ewan McGregor or Hayden Christensen in it. And since Star Wars in recent years has been relying heavily on cameos and fan service as one of the main draws of their TV shows, I thought that if Andor tried to do the same thing but instead with characters that I didn't care about, that the show would feel empty and pointless. However, Andor has so far blown me away. This is Star Wars at its best. I honestly believe it's up there with the greatest Star Wars content, just in a unique way. The show is more low-key, it's more gritty, it's more of a drama than an action-adventure show, which I find really refreshing. This show is more mature than most of what we've seen before, and while I definitely don't want all Star Wars projects to be this way, I really do think it makes sense for a TV show about a rebellion to be less lighthearted than other projects. This story continues with the usual themes of good versus evil, but it adds nuance. It explores the complexity of bad actions with good intentions, because in order to fight against evil, we must sometimes resort to that very evil ourselves. We must sometimes let go of our humanity for the greater good. And I think dilemmas like these are portrayed perfectly. We also explore the nature of hope, control, heroism, desperation, rebellion, and so many more themes that aren't new to Star Wars, but that have never been explored like this. But before we get deeper into our discussion on Andor, leave a like and subscribe for more. It really helps out the channel. Also check out my Patreon if you want to further support the channel. This show is called Andor, but it's about much more than just Andor. There are a lot of side plots in this story, some that really don't have much action at all, and while to some fans that might sound boring, it really isn't. Every character in the show has motivations, they have goals, they have flaws, they all feel like real people. And the writing in every scene is so crisp and engaging, especially the dialogue. I just love when characters talk in this show. And that's rare for Star Wars. Usually we want something to happen, don't we? But most of the drama and intrigue in this show comes from characters just talking. Honestly, the time spent away from Andor is a lot, but this time is balanced out really well between Luthen scheming and planning his rebellion, Mon Mothma dealing with the political scene, having to play the role of the fiery liberal that annoys all the fascists and order-obsessed politicians, but while in reality is plotting this rebellion with Luthen. We also have the Imperial characters such as Karn, who's trying to regain his honor and his position, as well as Dedra Meero, who's calm, calculated, and sadistic as hell. I love her. I can definitely see how these side plots could be boring to some fans, but personally, I just find them so intriguing, and I'm excited to see when all these side plots eventually come together. Now, this is not to say that Cassian Andor is missing in this show or that he's just shoved to the side. No, Andor is honestly a perfect protagonist for a show like this. Throughout most of the season, he's not really part of the rebellion. He's really just in it for himself and his own survival. However, he constantly gets put in situations where he has to confront the oppressive power of the Empire, and he needs to make decisions about fighting back against it or running away. And I feel like each of the situations he gets put into builds his relationship with both the Empire and the Rebellion further. It's so exciting to watch because we know where he ends up in Rogue One, but I love seeing his hate for the Empire and his sense of rebellion rise. It's almost like we're building this relationship alongside him. Diego Luna is great in this, and if you were going into this show wanting to see a lot of Cassian Andor, then don't worry, he still shines very brightly, and most of the action in the show involves him. Now, the characters and the dialogue is top-notch in my opinion, but I also really like how the season is split up into these more bite-sized mini-arcs that function almost like separate movies. However, each arc is still interconnected, and each builds on the previous one, and so the story keeps progressing and raising the stakes. I understand how the first and second episode in each mini-arc can feel slow to some people, especially if you're expecting a traditional Star Wars story with fast pacing, because there really isn't much action in these. That usually comes during the climaxes of the arcs. However, I personally love the slow build-up, because it's filled with intimate character moments and you can feel the story building towards something big, and so you just can't help but wanting to see where it all goes. It also just helps that the performances are so top-notch. Every single character is portrayed so well. Be it Cassian Andor, Luthen, Dedra Meero, Mon Mothma, Karn, Marva Andor, and my personal favorite, Kino Loy. His speech during the prison escape had me feeling all kinds of emotions. I think it's truly about time we recognize Andy Serkis for the brilliant actor he is, not just as a mocap actor but also just in general. But overall, the brilliant performances alongside the snappy and engaging dialogue, with the brilliant way the story is written and organized, to the visuals honestly looking better than most Star Wars content we've received recently, to the mature presentation and thematic focus the show has, I can confidently say that Andor has revived a spark in me that I thought had been lost. I'd been clutching to Star Wars, desperately trying to hold on to my love for the franchise, but for the past 5 years, with the slowly declining nature of the content we've received, and the absolutely abysmal state of the fandom where people who claim to be Star Wars fans would rather see the franchise and the fandom go up in flames than to accept that other people can have different opinions on movies than them. I just feel like I was beginning to get fatigued. I didn't know how much longer I could hold on for, but I think Andor was just what I needed, and I hope Disney realized that this show is succeeding, that this is what many fans have been craving. Even if it isn't their most profitable property, please give the showrunners the freedom and creative liberty they require, because trust me, even if the views aren't what you want them to be, I mean, they're by no means bad, but still, trust me, people will eventually recognize how good this show is. The more love this show receives and the more seasons it gets, I promise you its popularity will rise. I don't want Disney to learn the wrong lessons from Andor. I don't want them to go back to doing safe content that relies on previous content to succeed. Don't get me wrong, this is not a diss towards The Mandalorian or Kenobi or any of the others. There's still a massive audience for shows like that, but I hope that Andor can show Disney that there's also a market for different kinds of stories, that they shouldn't be afraid to experiment and take risks. Now, obviously, taking risks isn't something that a multi-billion-dollar company likes to do, especially when they already have a good formula for profit, but a man can hope. I mean, Andor has already been renewed for a second season, so that's a good sign. And honestly, there are some promising Star Wars projects on the horizon, so I might even say that I'm excited about Star Wars once again. However, the main root of that excitement is, of course, Andor. This show has so far blown me away. I think Star Wars can be different than Andor, but I don't think it gets much better, at least for me. That's the thing, I don't want to imply that just because I think Andor is amazing and just what I needed from Star Wars, that this is the case for everyone. Every fan loves different aspects of Star Wars, and I think there's room for at least most of us to be happy and get some content that stings to us. I personally love stories that challenge me in ways that I wasn't expecting, but that still explore deep and interesting themes. The last time Star Wars challenged me like this was The Last Jedi, and if Andor continues down this path it's going, then it absolutely has the potential to be one of my favorite pieces of Star Wars media ever. But what do you think of Andor? Do you love it as much as me, or are you looking for something else from Star Wars? Let me know down below. To me, Andor is a must-watch, and I'm very excited for the finale to come out. But other than that, I hope you all have a wonderful day, stay safe, and good night.